Yiddishfest.org. And I'm so excited tonight because this is blowing me away. The people that are about to entertain you are some of the most amazing people on the planet when it comes to this particular genre. And I could not be prouder to have them be a part of it. First of all, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everyone who is supporting us, all of the 44 acts, 189 participants, and we are having the greatest festival that I could ever imagine. You know me by now. I'm Avi Hoffman, founder and CEO of the Yiddishkeit Initiative, Why I Love Jewish, and this Why I Love Yiddishfest 2020. So welcome to this indecent music with and by Lisa Gutkin. Let me tell you a little bit about Lisa and a little bit about Indecent and what it means to me personally. We're talking about the Broadway play right now, and play with music, because the music was such an integral and important part of this piece. Lisa Gutkin is a Grammy Award violinist, singer, actor, and composer, best known as a member of the acclaimed Klezmatics, and most recently for her musical score performance and music direction in the two-time Tony Award winner, Indecent, on Broadway. She had a cameo performance, I did not know this, Lisa, Sex and the City. She had a seat in Sting's Broadway band for The Last Ship. And she has a CD of original songs produced by John Lissauer, and she did the scores for 2 of Pearl Gluck's films, and I remember Pearl. She has co-authored songs with Ann Sexton, Maggie Dubreeze, and with Woody Guthrie on the song Gonna Get Through This World, which was described by Pete Seeger himself as a piece of genius. And I have had the privilege of working with Lisa on Indecent in a production in Florida. And also the first time we ever did a reading of my mother's book, her memoir, A Breed Apart, Lisa Gutkin came to Brooklyn and improvised underscoring for the reading that we did in Brooklyn with Lisa and Eleanor Risa. Lisa Gutkin and Eleanor Risa. So I would like to invite Lisa Gutkin, my dear, dear friend. I could not be prouder to have you be a part of this. Why don't you turn yourself on? There she is.
Thank
Hi, Lisa. Hi.
you, honey.
So I just want to tell one little story, and then I'm going to let you take it over.
Okay.
But my mother, who we all know is one of the top experts in the world in this particular field of Yiddish language and culture. She used to travel a lot to New York to watch shows on Broadway. And she called me up and she said, okay, so I just saw a show on Broadway. You have to fly up tomorrow and come see the show. I'm getting tickets. It's closing and you have to see it. And I literally got on a plane and flew up to New York to watch the last performance of Indecent on Broadway. I remember meeting you guys very shortly afterwards, but you don't remember me from that. And I just remember that from the moment the play started, the lights came up and tears welled in my eyes, and I didn't stop crying and laughing for the entire production. And I thank all you and Rebecca and all of the performers. And I was never so moved by a show on Broadway or anywhere really that I had ever seen, because it spoke to me on so many personal levels, which we could talk about later. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and be blown away by the incredible Lisa Gutkin and her special friends, which she will introduce soon. I love you. Thank you for doing this, Lisa.
Love you. Thank you for having us. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, Avi, and to all of you out in Facebook land and YouTube land for watching this incredible festival that's happening to celebrate Yiddish culture. And that was an example of a tune that I wrote several years ago before I started working on this beautiful project, Indecent. And I played it because it almost became the theme for Indecent. And I just wanted to give a little history. I know Avi gave a lovely thank you review of some of my theater work and some of my past work. I also have been on stage several times, also as well as writing and being, doing the music. And on stage, you listen to the music and it fills you with a certain emotion. And so I know how important the role of music is, not just for the audience, but for the actors themselves. And so this is a piece that I wrote with the Klezmatics for the Klezmatics to play. And so when I met my co-composer, Aaron Halva, he kind of fell in love with that piece, those two pieces. And the very fast piece we did end up using in Indecent, but the slow one we did not. And it was because I felt like it was a little too melancholy for the show. I wanted the show to have an uplifting aspect to it and a pensive aspect to it, but I didn't want it to be quite as melancholy as this tune. So I'll tell you more about the melodies that we did end up writing. First, I'd like to play for you the opening number. First, actually, I want to show you. Okay, I want to show you the little synopsis of. Let's see if I could do a screen sharing here. A synopsis of screen share. I first got a call from Rebecca and Paula Vogel in like 2012 saying, we've got this lovely script. Are you interested in writing the music for it? And so I read the script in one shot on an airplane to LA and called when I got on the other side and said, absolutely. And then years later, it was called Rehearsing Vengeance. Anyway, this was my tiny little synopsis of where I thought music had to be in the play. I just thought that was a cool kind of thing to share with you all. That I took this whole beautiful play and I narrowed it down to like 12 lines and decided where I wanted the music. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. And now I want to show you a film of the opening music.
Mm. Mm. Ah, wow. I'm crying.
You crying?
I am.
Okay. But you can see how the music is so deep, even just what we're doing, but it had to be just right for the flavor of the piece. I'm jumping around because I don't it's so overwhelming. Indecent. My part in it, my work in it, what I put in it, what I did with my co-composer and with David Dorfman, the choreographer, and Rebecca Taichman and Paula Vogel. It is so deep and rich. It's hard to know where to start. But one of the threads that I want to talk about, keep coming back to, is this idea of sort of getting the emotion, getting the right emotion of what we were all thinking. And the wonderful thing about, you know, working with Rebecca and myself and Aaron is that we had this understanding of the emotion that we were trying to get. And so there's one piece that I'm going to keep coming back to throughout, and that is what became known as the Rivkala and Manka theme. The two main characters, two of the main characters, the two lovers, and I just want to play a little bit of that. So that's the main theme that ran through for the lovers. And so I'm just introducing that to you now, and we're gonna keep coming back to it and talking about it a few times throughout the show. I have the feeling the person I'm going to introduce to you now is also in tears, just like you are, Avi. And and she is my very, very dear director who helped me learn so much about direction and music direction and oh, just I'm speechless when I talk about the Tony Award winning director, my dear friend Rebecca Taichman. I knew. Oh,
Oh my God, it's so moving to hear that music. Thank you, Lisa. That was a gift to hear.
thank you.
I felt like all the spirits rising in this. You called them back,
Yes.
pulled them back.
And I should introduce the two people who I pre-recorded that with, and I'm actually going to bring them on the show in a little while. But that was Christina Crowder and Matt DARRIAU. Matt DARRIAU joined the company at the Vineyard, and then full time at on Broadway. And but I kind of always had Matt's clarinet playing in my mind because he's my partner in the Klezmatics. And Christina Crowder is the accordion player. Rebecca, I don't even know if you know this. Christina was at Yale, and she gave the band a coaching on klezmer.
Oh, That's right. Yeah. No, I remember that. It's foggy, but I do remember. Yeah.
Anyway, that's who is playing the pre-record, and they're going to come in a little bit later and say hi to us also. So,
Liska.
yeah. So Rebecca, like, do you remember how that all started? I mean, I remember that we somehow had to get from this, like, ghosty kind of thing to this joyful Alabrita. That's like sort of my recollection of how the first thing started.
I mean, it was such a truly unique process, I think, because we went into rehearsal tell me if I'm remembering wrongly anything.
Yeah.
But as my memory serves, we went into rehearsal with the songs. We knew what the songs were.
Exactly.
And you and Aaron had several beautiful themes. We didn't know exactly where they would go. And we built the whole thing together. And it was like kind of insanity. I mean, because we didn't have a lot of time and there was so much to do. You held the flashlight for me. That's the truth, because I would hear you play and then I would feel what it was supposed to be. And it was organic in a way that I think is extremely rare, where you could see what I was trying to make, add to it, and take it a step further than I ever would have known to go without you. And respond, and then develop and develop and develop it, because, as you know, at least my process is very iterative. So it's like repeat, small change, repeat, which can be incredibly crazy making. But also it created like a lab in a way for you guys to create and refine absolutely exquisite music that breathed with the story as it was unfolding in front of us. It was an amazing thing to watch.
Well, and I have
Find it.
and it's funny because you're passing it to me and I'm passing it to you, and it was a lot of this passing because you insisted on us being in the room with you.
I'm sorry.
No, no, I mean, at the time I was furious because I was like, I can't write music when people are, talking and doing this. But we sat around the table, and for people who are not in the theater world, we should describe what happens. The first thing you do is everybody sits around a big table and just reads the parts, right? And
Yeah.
and then you did this amazing historical study. Oh, we had like class trips and everything. I mean, it was incredible. And yeah, you did this. You gave people assignments, so they yeah they studied aspects of the time period. And it was really rich, and I sat around going like, yeah, all this is great, but I need music, and what you're tying my hands here. But in the end, I felt like I grew to know the characters in a way I never would have if I just came. Most of the other theater work that I've done, it's like I come in afterwards, I see sort of a product, and then I think, oh, this is nice. Here's nice music here. But some of the themes, like this Rivkala and Manka theme, was not written early. I was tortured by it actually because I had some idea in my mind, and Aaron wanted that other piece. Did you know that?
No, and I'm so interested to hear your description of you didn't want it to be too melancholy.
Can you imagine that instead of that was,
So
it was
interesting.
sweet that he loved that tune, but it just was not quite right to me. But the aspect of it that was right was the rhythm of it.
Hmm.
Bum, 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 bum. That felt really deep to me. And as I was and oh, but all I knew was that I wanted uh an arpeggio. Do you know what an arpeggio is? You know, I just knew that I wanted that so that I could do things with it later, and I remember walking around Yale going like, I don't have anything, I don't have anything. All I have is this. you know, walking around the streets of Yale going, it's like, but because of sitting around that table and really getting to know the characters.
I'm so relieved to hear that, because in retrospect, it was indulgent in a certain way, but I did really want the musicians to feel deeply a part of the company
Mhm.
and like authentically. But it was a tremendous commitment of time and emotional energy, and it yielded a ton.
It yielded.
But it was intense.
Yeah.
And it really, I did always feel that the heartbeat of the piece was in your playing, in your body, and in your music. I always felt that.
And how did you know David Dorfman?
David, I met when I did a piece, another Yiddish piece, um, a long time ago, called The Green Violin, about Solomon Mechoils and the Soviet Yiddish theater. And we did that in Philadelphia. He
Music,
choreographed it.
music
Sorry, by Frank London, exactly.
mathematic bandmate.
Yes, Klezmatic's mate. And David choreographed that, and the piece had so much potential, and we didn't quite fill it. But it was obvious that David understood, was just like the world was in his blood.
Right.
And then I think he just seemed like the obvious person. Boy, was that a good choice.
Oh,
I mean,
it was incredible.
and I think the thing you said in a way about not being melancholy, it's like all the people that were gathered understood that to tell this story, you couldn't allow like sentimentality in the room, and that it couldn't play off of like a preconceived idea of what this story would be, that it had to have something completely singular, full of actually like hope, that contains a Kaddish sort of in the deep heart of it, in the deep center of it. But that whenever we tried anything that felt sentimental, the show would just kick it out the door. Like,
Exactly. It just and that was the most amazing thing, is like we barely had to say anything. We all knew. It was like, nope. It
an
was
amazing, amazing. And then that we got to refine it, because we did it 4 times together, which is really a very unique
with
situation,
except the rotating clarinet player.
except the rotating clarinet player. And then
And
when Matt Dario walked in the room, oh, be still my beating heart.
yeah,
It all,
yes,
it really did.
exactly.
But that you and Aaron got to, like, you and I too, which I rarely get to do, like to actually tend to all the detail that you want to tend to, because time kept expanding.
It was, I mean, it didn't feel overly luxurious. We had a lot of work to do, and it felt
Yeah.
very, very poignant
Yeah.
of time, but not so much that I felt like you say, it was never like, oh, we don't have time to deal with that. No, if that needed to be dealt with, we dealt with it. You
There
know,
was like flop sweat at Yale because it was so fast feeling the first time. And we really didn't know what we had. We didn't know it was Paula and I had both done an unbelievable amount of research, and she had written this incredible script, but really it was something neither of us had ever quite seen. None of us really had ever quite seen this combination of things. And so we remember the first run through had an intermission. And it was, one of those run throughs where nobody will look at you. Like nobody would look at Paula and I in the eye afterwards. We were like, oh, it's terrible. And it had its own strange logic. As soon as we took out that intermission, suddenly it started to coalesce.
yeah.
But it was a very intuitive, like emotional process.
Yeah, and I don't think that, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you knew in advance that it was going to be that much music and a swirl of dance. Or did you? Was that always, I never asked you this.
I mean, I think I wanted it to be through scored.
Right.
I never in a million lifetimes could have dreamt of the score you made. That's the truth. And how incredibly gorgeous and moving and evocative it was to work with. But I did, as Paula and I were making it, I did imagine a very, very theatrical world, that music was a key part of, probably part of why I forced you to sit at that table. And because I was trying to figure it out too, why does it feel so essential?
Yeah, and I felt that sitting at the table was more, initially felt more about having us like be accepted by the cast, and woven in, but I didn't expect it to have such a deep effect on me in terms of the composing.
I mean, I remember, watching you during performances thinking, Lisa's an actress, which you lived it every time you did it. And I mean, deeply, deeply. Sometimes I would just look at you to feel what was happening. And that was in you. That's where you must have found the music. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. It just listen, that main theme, that the Rifkala Manka theme, which never appeared in its entirety in the piece. Little bits of it were used. But it actually, after all that wandering around Yale, pounding on myself and, just like, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and it was there.
Do you remember when in the process?
Um, um, well, I mean, it was probably it was like within 2 weeks.
Right, but it felt like you were wandering Yale forever.
Whoa. It was like major. I mean, look, we've put the most of the music together in like 3 weeks.
You did.
And
you did.
And then so
did. I mean, I think the whole score existed there, didn't it?
pretty much.
We changed some songs.
The letters melody came later. The Yiddish part of By Mir came.
Oh yeah, that great idea.
We changed some songs. So the songs were Paula's. Paula picked all.
Yes, Paula chose all the songs.
I heard Alabrita. I was like, oh no, come on. Alabrita, like I'm in the Klezmatics. I play Alabrita every single but it was so important to her that and of course in the end I understood all her choices. They were like really important choices. They depicted a certain energy, a certain emotion, a certain political, every aspect of it was chosen for really good reasons. But
Yeah, and even that Alla Breeder is plays the function that it plays in sort of Jewish life now was, I think, part one of many, 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 many reasons she felt very strongly, and she was dead right.
she was dead right.
Yeah.
Dead right. And then some of that we did kind of the more typical things that you do in theaters, that we took that melody and referred to it later, like I did that little interlude in the salon where I
Yeah.
back to it, die 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 die, as an intro to the salon, because we're all a la Brita, we're all brothers, here we are in the salon, you
But
know
do you remember writing, like, just as a scene was being performed, we were rehearsing a scene, creating music for it while you were watching it, while you were experiencing it?
so Rebecca, I don't know if you would ever, like, I feel like I'm like to my parents, did no, like when I told my parents I smoked pot or something, Rebecca, we would sit there and I would go to Aaron, I'm gonna put music onto here. And he's like, no, you're never gonna get away with it. No, she watch me. I'm gonna put music onto there. And if I played one note out of place, bam, it was smashed. It was like,
Oh,
no, but you were always right. You were always right. But that's how it became this delicate thing.
mhm.
No, something else needs to go here. And later, I'm going to ask Christina actually to play a little section um, of Secret Kiss, maybe. Because there's an example of, or yeah, Secret Kiss, because there's an example of how, like, we kind of, then I was like, come on, Aaron, come on, go. No, no, no. We can't step on the lyrics, so don't step on the words, but you could still play something. And we became, and this is why it was also so good to be in the room, because I knew the script so well
Yeah,
that we could treat the script like another instrument. So,
yeah.
you know um oh, what are the words, the guests will be here any minute, da 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 da, um, you know, Rivkala, da, 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 da. The guests will be here in a minute, da, 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 da. This, like, but who does that? Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, you're down to like every syllable, and there would be times where I would say to Matt or somebody on the clarinet, say, no, 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 you have to come in on the second syllable of that word, like that's the kind
You were so precise, we had to give the actor cue light because it was hard. It was extremely precise. I mean, and I love that.
it had to be. It just
But it's like part of what was so thrilling about working with you. That's the truth. You were in the absolute DNA and detail of the thing.
and I have to tell you that the reason I feel like, you know, it's not the first time in my life I've got to be that detailed, but you honored that so beautifully that I feel like I exploded as a creator. Like my confidence, my connection, everything, because it was like I was allowed to be myself, because that's what I've always wanted. Like these little.
Oh, I mean, and they say God is in the details, and you chased them down. I don't know if you remember, I feel like on opening of Broadway. So
What?
that was the fourth opening. Do you remember what we were still
No,
figuring out?
no, what?
It was the very like last note.
Oh yeah.
You were just like restless to, like, you kept feeling something wasn't exactly right, and you just chased it down, like minute shifts.
Cool. Well, let's see. Um, um, what I would like to, I want to play a few more things.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and that minute shift in it all, it had so much to do with again, that tiny bit of emotion and the the threads. Yeah.
You
So
could take a lifetime.
some of the more like upbeat stuff that came in, because that was another tricky thing, is like how to how to weave in. Oh, I know, Rebecca, you know what I want to play? I want to play something that you also have never heard, and that is a full version of the attic dance music. And this music came out of, do you remember when we were trying to do Alla Brita as a and write all these different musical parts to it?
What do you mean? Who, what,
Um,
like,
well, we had Alla Brita, and we had it for a little while. We had it part of this really long dance number with like five different musical parts. So I'm
right.
gonna jump to that and and um and play that for you.
Wonderful. Hmm.
Right? Yeah. Oh my goodness. The time passes so quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that kind of grew out of Alabrita, and then those little melodies could get used later. So I think after that cut, I think now it's time to invite our dear Matt Dario on. Hey Matt, come on, show yourself. Uh-oh.
Oh yeah, I have to turn it on. Of
Oh
course
yeah.
it is. Here we are.
Sometimes Matt, like, oh, you're just about to go on stage and it's like, oh, can I go to the bathroom now?
Uh, I'm here. I'm all ears. Great to hear the stories and the anecdotes.
Hey Matt, just to show the people how we wove in like traditional Jewish sounds and all of that, would you play a bit of the Doina for us?
Okay.
Yeah, and so just let me tell the people a little bit of the story. So we're coming into Ellis Island, and how do we depict like what's going on and what is being left behind in Ellis Island? And so that was actually Travis, the original clarinet player, just started playing this Doina. Remember that?
Hmm.
It was and so yeah, so that's for Ellis Island, for coming into Ellis Island. Ladies and gentlemen, my bandmate with the Klezmatics and the leader of the Paradox Trio and Ball and the Jacks Big Band, and most amazing, amazing, wonderful musician that I've had the privilege. He was also in my more Irishy band, my Celtic band, Whirligig. He's the one who pulled me into the klezmer world to begin with, and my very, very dear, wonderful beautiful musician friend, Matt DARRIAU.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Okay, Doina, Ellis Island, Doina. I think you guys also call it Doina Swirl.
Yeah.
The, the real challenge on this one was to do this completely like spotlight on me solo focus thing in the middle of the stage while prancing out to the center and then doing a kind of twirl or two
Turning
twirls
around.
and then kind of high in the air and that involved a lot of practice like in front of a mirror in the basement when no one was watching. Yeah, a lot of that in this show. Challenging. I'll try to sing.
And then after,
Level, level.
Ah,
yeah, great, Matt.
Mr. Rush, Mr. Rush,
Ash,
Mr.
Mr.
Rush.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, lovely. And so, Matt, did you really you really got into the minutia and the detail too in a way that I hadn't gotten to see you do. I think it was really nice to hear the little tiny little changes that you made, like in the bass clarinet parts, the little leading notes that you came up with that pull made even more like to me the whole play was like a swirl. It was like this just like constant movement. And Matt, I felt like when you came in, you kind of brought that on a deeper level. Like to me the swirl was up here a lot, and then a lot of what you did kind of brought it
The whole
down.
show go that way a bit because, well, when I jumped on, yeah, started subbing on the off Broadway, I just had to learn what was there. That was really challenging because I wasn't in rehearsals,
Mm.
and so I had to rehearse in my living room with the video, and then get pushed out on stage. We did the one run through. That was really super challenge. But anyway, you had a high level of detail there, but then I got to be in the process of going to the next level and on Broadway, and then well, it was fairly rushed. I think the rehearsal time, but it's like there's a whole new level of seriousness, and then the repetition and then all the rehearsals. It was the bass parts like you're referring to, and the little minutia that you could evolve it, and then it was evolving through the first 3 months. We were making little changes, so I think it's neat when you can such an opportunity to be with a piece that long and be in the evolution uh, that just keeps developing. So I don't know, but I
And that was
found
that
with finding bass parts that would work both melodically and bass, kind of like Paul McCartney, bass function and melodic, and uh, and finding all the little things that unlock it in just the right way, and to serve the piece.
so I would like to play another little part. Um,
Can you turn your volume up a little bit
my volume?
on your playback if you can?
Really? Okay.
A little softer right here, I thought.
Okay. Um, so this was a nice thing when Oh, bass clarinet wasn't even added to the show until the Vineyard. Did you know that, Matt? Did you even know that?
When you first talked to me about it, there was something about like, can you play bass, like upright
Origi-
bass?
right. Originally, the instrumentation was clarinet and upright bass. Yeah. And then we switched to bass clarinet. And then when the bass clarinet came, I had this idea to add mandolin. So I just want to play. I know we're jumping around a lot because gosh, we could do this for hours and hours, but
Wish we could.
I know. So I want to play this mandolin when the mandolin got added, and then. Well, okay.
Mm.
Okay, so that was not bass clarinet, but anyway, that kind of came in with the flavor. There was another clip with bass clarinet, but yeah. So the instrumentation did change toward even as late as the Vineyard. So, well, thanks, Matt. I want to bring on our last guest, my last guest, and who you've been seeing in this, and you know, once the show started going into production in other cities, I mean, that was a whole amazing thing to watch, to see, and to like, hope that the music would actually be able to carry itself to a whole nother production. And so I was really, really thrilled when I was able to recommend my dear friend Christina, who we talked about, knew the play from Yale, as early as Yale, and was involved in the sound and understood it. I was able to recommend her to Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And she became the music director of that, and also Portland.
Artist Repertory Theater. Yeah.
Right. So, and Christina, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, because all these different projects, Christina is unbelievably well respected and revered in the klezmer scene, because she is not only knows so much about the history, but has this beautiful way of teaching it, and she's collects people, she gets people to work together, and but I did forget the title of the project that you're working on, the initiative.
Klezmer Institute.
So there's the
Yes.
Klezmer
Yes.
Institute. Aren't there two that you're
Klezmer Institute has a number of projects.
a number of branches?
Yeah.
So just briefly tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, Klezmer Institute is a new organization founded in the fall of 2018, and we are a group of people dedicated to the study, research, teaching of Ashkenazic expressive culture, which is klezmer music, Ashkenazic dance, Yiddish song, and Hasidic music. And sort of we're finding a niche in bridging between practitioners of klezmer music and Yiddish singers, and archivists and archival holdings, and how to sort of make archives accessible to practitioners. So we have very deeply committed klezmer audiences around the world who are deeply want to know about the music, right? So our initial big project is to work with a bunch of material from the Ansky expeditions in Ukraine in 1912 to 1914 that we've gotten access to from the Brunetsky National Library of Ukraine. And so that's our kind of our big tentpole project that's coming up, that we'll be making announcements about soon.
Shalom
That's really
Ash's, Shalom
Yeah.
Ash's childhood.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Or yeah, growing up. Yeah, beautiful,
That's right.
beautiful.
Yeah, so that's it.
Christina, would you play a little of Secret Kiss for us?
Yes. One of my personal, since
I
it is
know,
an
I
accordion
love
feature.
to play it.
Yeah.
And this is an example, and Christina relays this so beautifully of playing in between the breaths and in between everything. And so yeah, let's just hear Christina's version.
Tell me if I get too far, too close.
And then, just when you least expected it,
Whistle.
clink. I can't believe you asked me to do a play where I got to play some Irish that on the whistle. Did you ever? Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Oh, lovely, Christina.
Thank you.
So
That piece just has all of the things that you've been talking about, hearing the two of you talking about the process. That piece for me has all of it in it.
Yeah.
Because you play it and then you feel how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then there's this flexibility to give the director the opportunity to direct the scene however he or she might like to do it, but then the actors can breathe in it, and then the music finds its way, and then every little part of it is choreographed musically to turn on the emotions that are being coming through the text.
Right.
You know, and each little section, each little detail has a breath in it, makes a shift, and you're just following along with the actors.
Yeah.
And it's just so amazing, right? It's just great to get to do that.
That really is the beauty of Aaron Halva. You know, that's really is something that, you know, because he's done quite a bit of theater himself, and you know, that piece is like, yeah. And so just one more question, and then we're going to bring Avi back on, and maybe
there are a couple of questions from the audience and a couple of comments. So.
but just one more question for Christina, and that is, Christina, so how do you convey that to new musicians?
Yeah.
And
it's
all
a
new. They
lot.
haven't seen the play. They don't know anything. How do you convey that?
I mean, I think there's a lot of work at the beginning, just thinking about idiom,
Yeah.
and really just sort of acknowledging and just thinking about all the different idioms that you've drawn on to put the score together. There's and finding, for me, it's about finding the Yiddishkeit and finding the Yiddishkeit that's the middle of the music, in the way that it's also in the middle of the play.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with the rhetoric, if we could call it rhetoric, that you have built into the music.
Right.
And I think that musicians who are not familiar with klezmer as an idiom are not used to thinking of things that way. It's not just only about phrasing, it's about saying something very specific in these very short amounts of music. And so when you can have that conversation, when you have musicians who are able to take that on board, it makes the process work very nicely, because then now you're open to observing the rhetoric of the scenes,
Right.
and being then integrated
Right.
into them. And it's a huge challenge. The last thing I would say about this is a huge challenge for musicians. I mean, highly trained classical musicians, pit orchestra musicians, performing, gigging musicians. I think all three of those kinds of musicians encounter challenges in this work, because here's a score. It looks like kind of like nothing.
Yeah.
In some ways, it looks like nothing, but you have to memorize it.
Right.
And then you have to be moving while you're playing.
Right.
And then you're in the scene and you're in a costume. And then you have to also speak with such authority
Right.
as an individual at the moments when you are speaking.
Right.
Right? It is very actor-ish in that way. And it's a lot to throw at a musician, because the music is so precise. There's no wing in it, really, within the score. Like, you play the score as you read the text of the play.
Right.
You read the score, you play the score out of your head. And that's it elevates everything about the work that you do, I think.
Well,
in this
thank
show.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I know that there are indecent artists from all over the world that are watching this right now. London, Denver, Philadelphia. I mean, all these, I know, because I know a lot of the people who are, and thank you all for bringing it forward, because it's a story that needs to be told. And I don't think it could be told without musicians who really dug in and dig in to the Yiddishkeit of it. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, and Rebecca. Woo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, Yiddishkeit, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Talk about Yiddishkeit. We got Avi Hoffman in the house.
Hey, hey.
Talk about a Yiddishkeit.
Well, you know, first of all, I am blown away by this whole conversation, because I love Indecent so much. And listening to the inner workings, because you go to the theater, you see it, you go, oh, that was great. So smooth. How easy that must have been. And then, of course, those of us who are in the business know how difficult and complicated it is to really develop these things. There's actually a very interesting question on Facebook from a woman named Janice. She says, when the music was being developed, was it always supposed to be a trio? It seems like an ideal mix, but she's very curious about that.
Yes, I mean, we talked about a trio. Remember, we had dinner in a Thai restaurant or something. Yeah. And you know, it's an instrumentation that I play all the time. Like I just love that instrumentation. It's, you know, and so we did talk about other possible instrumentations, and when it went to Broadway, we did think about maybe expanding it, but I think it was always supposed to be a trio. Yes, the answer is
And that was what you felt from when you first read it, I think.
yeah. And the instrumentation just felt right to me. So
Another comment from a woman named Nicole, who apparently has done the show. She's performed in a local production of the show. And she says the way you can feel the script's words in the music always amazes her, is her comment. And I think that is a really wonderful comment about how the words and the music fit so beautifully. Everything in this play, we talked about, at least the show at Gable Stage, how it's almost like the perfect piece of theater. Every single element fits so well. And again, when I saw it on Broadway, from the moment it started, I was so blown away. I'd like to talk about something which kind of relates to the music, but not only. I taught a course at the University of Miami a little over a year ago called Yiddish Theater, the Foundation of Modern Culture. And basically what my hypothesis is the idea that you cannot look at our modern culture without finding the roots back to that Yiddish theater. And this piece is the perfect example. To take the God of Vengeance, which we actually did a reading of last night, and it was amazing and stunning. We had David Mazower, who talked about Sholamash and his great-grandfather, and Lisa, you and I did it when we were at Gable Stage. Oh,
I played Hindel.
That's right, you played Hindel.
Can you play Hindel, Rebecca? Go ahead.
When the God of Vengeance serves as a basis, a foundation for the development of a modern 21st century ultra contemporary reinterpretation such as Indecent, it is magic. And can you talk, all of you, if you'd like, but especially Rebecca, I'd love to hear your take and Lisa's take from the music perspective and the composition of it, of how you go from a 1907, period piece to such a modern reinterpretation and process is just mind-boggling to me.
You want to go first, Lisa?
You go first.
I think, first of all, thank you for all the incredibly kind words. Very appreciated. Truly. I feel like there's like the simplest answer to that question, which is Paula Vogel, because she saw the structure of how the piece ended up being built. She saw very, very, very quickly. It was a play that I had learned about as a graduate student long before, and had attempted my own version of it, which was called People versus the God of Vengeance, that interwove the transcript of the obscenity trial with the text of the play. And it was clear from that it was a story that needed, or that longed to be told, and that there was no way I could do it alone. And Paula immediately saw that it's movement through time. And because of the way she thought about how it would move through time, and the way she immediately was driven towards this a very contemporary and also kind of very mythic style for it. It came to her very, very quickly. That big picture.
And I would say that affected us musically as well, because we talked a lot about it, and that big picture, you could feel it from the beginning to the end, that I can't remember the ending, but I remember the beginning. I can't it's like because there is no ending. There's it goes on forever. And so I knew right away that, and I don't even think that that there was ever any question about making it a period piece. like it's not really a period piece, you know, and musically it's not totally like if you went through and you said, oh, this is not really right for that era and that's not really, you know, we didn't try to be that exact, but it was enough so that it's accessible to a modern ear, the music, you know, it was intentionally accessible enough for a modern ear, and enough of a respect and a reference to an old style and to different old styles, because there's some swing and jazz in there too that that was appropriate for various time periods. So and back to that one Rivkala and Manka theme is so, you know, right, you know, I always knew I wanted to go to sort of like a minimalist kind of thing. You like that, which is really listen to that. Right? So if you take that and you change the rhythm, you know, that's just image music. That's sort of movie kind of music. It's no longer an old sound, but you still hear it in the beginning. And I knew that from the beginning. That's why you know, that's why I walked around Yale for so long, because I already knew what I wanted at the end. You know, I knew I wanted to write a melody that could do that and transfer. And that was directly from Paula, really, from that same.
Right, and yes, the script, of course, you know, first it's on the page and then it goes to the stage. But to get it to the stage takes the reinterpretation of the words. You know, you say it's a period piece or not a period piece. Part of our conversation yesterday with God of Vengeance was that, you know, most people think of it as a period piece. And yet David Mazower has traveled all over the world and seen productions of it that are done now, contemporary. Rivkala is playing air guitar, you know, and it's abstract and it's weird and it's wild. And so, you know, again, and forgive me, I know I sound like a starstruck, you know, teenager. But, you know, Rebecca, what you brought was you took those words, and Lisa, you took that music, and Rebecca was able to take it and turn it into this just so now, so today, so contemporary in its approach that it transcended the period, it transcended the language, it transcended the you know, the, in a way, it transcended the Yiddishkeit. It was so full of Yiddishkeit that it became totally universal. And that's what made me like so, I mean, that's what made me cry from the moment it started until the moment it ended. I was just a mess. I was a blubbering mess. And I laughed and cried and loved every second. And I love everything that you guys brought to it. So, you know, thank you for that. Thank you. What a gift. You've given the world a gift. And I hope that someday this COVID thing goes away, because Lisa and I are scheduled to do a production down in Key West. We were hired and then COVID came along with my cousin, Nancy 3. So
I would love that.
We're already way late, but you know what? At this point, I don't care if nobody's watching, and everybody's still there, so it's good. But like I said, this festival is now for me. I'm not, you know, it's not even about anybody else. You know, for me personally, being a child of survivors, and my father was in Auschwitz, so every time we got to that part of the play where we went to Auschwitz, when I played Lemel, it was, you know, devastating. But there was so much more, you know, the idea that you were able, and Paula was able, to bring in the elements of the Lodge, you know, troupe, you know, Now, I don't know if I ever was able to share this story with you, but my father in Auschwitz became very sick and he was sent to the infirmary. And basically, the infirmary, if you got an aspirin, you were lucky. Basically, they just, because they took pity on him, one of the capos liked him and said, okay, I'm going to get you into the infirmary. And he was basically going to die. They sent him there to die. And in the bunk under him was the son of a very famous rabbi. And because he was the son of a famous rabbi, they would bring people into the room to basically protect him and entertain him. And guess who showed up in Auschwitz? The Lodge acting troupe.
Oh man.
They were brought into my father's infirmary room where the rabbi's son was, and they performed they performed scenes from Sholem Aleichem's Kasrilivke Brent in Yiddish theater. And my father came from a little shtetl in the Carpathian Mountains. He'd never seen theater before. And he literally says that watching the Lodge troupe perform Sholem Aleichem made his fever break and saved his life. Like he was so stunned by it that he got better. And so once again, for me personally, being able to do that show and experience all those things was just beyond, beyond anything I'd ever experienced before. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Wow. Okay. So music. Let's talk a few more minutes because it's already way past our bedtime. But tell me, and again, I put this out to all of you because, the Yiddish music, the Jewish, the music of Yiddishkeit, the soul, the neshama of the music was so apparent in the piece and the way you all played it. What was it like for you musicians? This is a question for the musicians who are not actors like Lisa Gutkin, to suddenly have to be in the show. It's one thing to sit in the pit and play, pit music. It's a very different thing to be part of the acting troupe. And so do you mind like giving us some of your thoughts on that process and how difficult or not difficult or, satisfying or scary or whatever from your perspective?
Matt, I really saw you really transform on that one.
Sorry, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest challenges I've ever had, and growth experiences. What I didn't expect in my young middle age. But anyway, yeah, all those levels, all those facets, because the music is one thing, and then the acting challenge, because we really were actors. We were silent actors, but it's every bit as hard to be in costume under spotlights, especially when those first nights when there's 800 people in the audience. And I'm not an experienced actor for that way, to keep a focus and a comfort and a focus on what you're doing, and really having to forget that you're on stage and reminding yourself. The other actors really helped me because I hadn't done much acting.
I was going to say that, yeah.
To be able to respond to things in a naturalish way, they really helped me with some just really simple, a few sentences here and there. Matt, just follow the conversation. Your eye, follow it, and suddenly you'll be in it. And then you don't have to remember to respond. You will respond. That was the greatest Lemel.
I knew that was Richard. I knew that was a Richard advice, yeah.
There's a couple of the simplest things there, the focus on the face thing. Whatever. As soon as you start looking down at the floor, you're lost. Because when you're in a room with people conversing, you're following faces. It's really simple, but it's a freaking huge challenge.
But I have to take exception with one thing you said. You were not a sight actor. You spoke through your instrument, and your speaking was as loud as any of the other actors.
Well, that part was easier because the language I was using was this language I know how to do on stage and I'm comfortable with. But really, being in the scene with reading with the books, in fact, Rebecca picked up on, I think, that I was kind of uncomfortable in leading up to the Broadway run, and she didn't
Come
say,
on.
"Matt, are you okay?" You're coming, but she came up
Oh
at
no.
later rehearsals. I said, "Matt, how about do you smoke?" "Oh, well, I can a little bit. I do a little bit. How about we give you a cigarette to smoke?" Is that true, Rebecca? Did I look a little uncomfortable with my fingers or something?
Action,
Yeah,
action.
try that.
No,
So
I just wanted to, you're a very different,
I want
like,
you to be the badass.
spirit in that part, and it felt like, you came to life more. That wasn't about, oh, like he looks awkward and
Oh, I just assumed that was because you know how we question
right.
ourselves.
You added that.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting because you didn't tell me why or anything. You just suggested it, like, sure. Anyway, then that evolution, and still 6 weeks into the show, still kind of uncomfortable with it. And then it's great when you get 3 months into the show and then you look forward to it and you're digging it. It's really a crazy evolution, and then another thing about the music. We're musicians, and the language of music we know that's on stage. But when you're in the service or in collaboration with a show and a story, where you would normally have, you do your normal intuitive musical nuance, crescendoing here, or a retard at the end of a phrase, end of the tune, where you just normally feel something just for inherent musical reasons, blah blah blah. When on stage, those don't always work, right? Because of the next thing that's happening to serve the drama. Like, well, maybe it shouldn't. Yeah, normally we would slow down on that kind of thing, but no, in this case, no, because we need to leave something hanging for the next scene or whatever. Lisa was really good with, really adept at directing and having a sense for those kind of nuances, and that was another kind of discipline that you had to learn to remember you're in the service of the story. Really, you can't just be groovy and musical on your own.
And having then after that worked with different directors, who might have a slightly different, and for Christina as well, then you also really, you need to honor the direction of the particular show that you're in at the moment. So taking that in and moving to the next director, and which is why there was one piece when we pre-recorded and I was like, oh, you play that quite differently from us. Mm-hmm. But it's only because you had to breathe. You were breathing with different actors and a different director. Your breath was different. It wasn't right or wrong. It was like, thank heavens you were able to take that and breathe the way you needed to for your show.
That's right. Yeah.
Rebecca, have you seen other productions that you have not directed?
Not yet.
Wow. Wow.
Still, and I can't, I'd be so curious. We were about to open it in London, right when everything
right
down.
We had a first preview.
We had a first preview. You guys had a first, there was a first preview.
I wasn't in the show, but I music supervised.
Yeah.
There was only one preview of that, and then it closed.
And then COVID, yeah.
It'll come back, but I can't wait to see it. I think it's still, or it was pre-COVID, sort of still so in my mind and my body and my heart and everything that I wasn't ready to replace it.
Right.
But I'd be so curious. I know I'd learn a tremendous amount, sort of.
I was going to say, I've been very privileged to work on 3 different productions. I consulted on all three, and I was in one. And they were all so different.
Fascinating.
And it was amazing. The one at Palm Beach Drama Works in Palm Beach won every single award in the South Florida theater, community, and directed by a non-Jew who was brilliant, and it was such a well done and well produced production, and they got it. Then the one I did with Lisa at Gable Stage, which I was in, which was a little difficult for several reasons. Our director officially was Joseph Adler, Oliver Scholler, and it was actually one of the last shows that he did before he passed away, and he was very sick. And nobody really knew how sick he was. And so the choreographer kind of had to direct it, and direction, but it was a little confusing for everybody involved. And it was still a great show, because how can it not be? You know, I mean, it's one of those shows that is just innately wonderful. And then I worked on a production in Cape Cod at Cape Rep. And again, the director was so, had her own take, which was so wonderful. And her interpretation of it, and the actors, some of them were not, you know, not Jewish, had no idea about any of this stuff. And it was fascinating. So I'd love, you know, someday to talk to you about, you know, other productions of this. Guys, I wish we could go on and on and on, but it's already almost 11:30, and I kind of have to tie this up, because tomorrow we have another full day of incredible, you know, incredible shows. We are starting tomorrow morning. Oh, Lisa, you know Efim Chorny from Moldova.
We all know
Efim.
Yeah, you all know him. Talk about ethnomusicology, and talk about, you know, klezmer. I met him in Bucharest in Romania at the International Festival, and he just blew me away. Apparently, what he specializes in is running around the countryside to the most obscure places to listen to the folks music, and kind of make records of it. And so he's doing a concert with his wife, Susanna Gergis, and that's in the morning after our Yiddish cooking class, of course. And then we actually have a wonderful thing. Rebecca, I'm sure you'll find this fascinating. There's a project called the Jewish Play Project, where they commission new plays. They have a competition for new plays with Jewish content. And so the winner of that competition, and the director of the project, David Winitsky, is going to be presenting their annual competition, who the runners-up were. And then we're going to interview the winner of the competition with her new play, which is called A Moving Picture, which, interestingly enough, kind of feels a little like Indecent. And then I'm going to be reading selections from my mother's upcoming new book called Amazing Rabbinic Tales, The Shortest Tall Stories. And it's this great collection of stories about rabbis. And then, oh my God, Frank London and Eleanor Risa have put together a show, a concert, specifically for this festival, called Mir Gehen Nicht Zurück, No Turning Back, where they've taken all of these partisan songs and given them a modern interpretation, and a more contempo. Deep Singh is playing bongos. I mean, I'm so blown away by this. And then we're finishing the night with a live reading of selections from a series of novels called Jews on the Moon. And I don't know if anybody ever remembers The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or to the Universe, or whatever it was called. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, yeah. So this writer named Steve Geller, who became a friend of mine several years ago, wrote a whole series of novels that take place in like the year 2127. And it's all about this Jew who travels around the galaxy and finds Jews everywhere. And it's hysterical. We're going to be doing that. And that's tomorrow. So that's why I have to bring this to a close. Anybody want to say anything else before we move on?
Yes. I want to say that the CD, the official cast album that features Matt DARRIAU and Aaron Halva and myself and all of the original cast, is available most places where CDs are sold, and also on my website at lisagutkin.com.
Bravo. What's next for all of you? Anything, I mean, beyond COVID and beyond, or within COVID? Like for us here at the Yiddishkeit Initiative, this COVID horrible tragedy, Magefe, has actually opened up the doors to do something like this, where we can get all these amazing artists from all over the world to come together. You know, Yiddish has no country. Well, Zoom has no country. So let's all meet in Zoom and do Yiddishkeit. And it's amazing. What do you guys have coming up? Or what are you working on?
Doing
If you want to share.
Well, I'm working on a lecture series, actually. Speaking of Zoom, Klezmerland has been activated to do research. You know, collectively, there's a group that's been reading Berogowski in Yiddish for weeks and weeks and months now. And we're going to do, Klezmer Institute is going to do a series of lectures with various figures. You know, Mila Sholchova, I think from New York Public Library now, major archivist, and Judith Friedjeshi, who studied Davenin in Hungary for her fieldwork. You know, some maybe lesser known but also very important figures in sort of understanding this Ashkenazic expressive culture. So we'll be hitting those November, December, and into next year, because who knows when this is. And now we know how to do this. So let's do it.
I'd love to know more about the Klezmer
Okay,
Institute.
absolutely.
Hopefully we can collaborate on something.
Totally.
You know where the Yiddish word davenin comes from?
I don't know where it comes from. I know what it is.
You know the
but I don't-
root of davenin? It's actually Latin. You know, people don't realize that Yiddish is such a rich language. It's over 1,000 years old, and it has roots in all the other, you know, languages. Latin, divinus, divine, davinen, and that's where the word davinen comes from. Matt, what do you got coming up? What are you working on?
Oh, I'm working on my house here.
Nice.
A country house, fixer-upper, upstate in the Hudson Valley. That's my big focus. Actually, I'm having a ball doing, because carpentry runs in my family, and I did it when I was younger. But well, I'm trying to take some of this COVID time to finish up a lot of projects that are in the old hard drives from several different groups of mine, Paradox Trio, and I'll be working on a record with this actually kind of Jewishy band that investigates the music of this fellow Manny Blank, who made an obscure record in the early '60s that, with fantastic klezmer musicians, almost no one knew about him. He was a working around New York musician. He did a fantastic record that's very eclectic and eccentric, kind of in the cocktail realm with kind of surf guitar stuff, but some deep melodies. It's really fun groups digging into his repertoire from this one record he made called Jewish Jazz. Anyway, that's you could look around for that. Finally, you can find that record online, but it wasn't even online for a while.
That is so cool. Rebecca, what are you doing in COVID times? What do you got working?
Well, theater's really, cut off at the knees. I mean, it's really quite something. Deeply sad and difficult and bewildering. So I'm taking care of my amazing daughter, and like sometimes I feel like her assistant, basically, scheduling her appointments,
How old is
organizing.
How old is your daughter?
9.
Oh, she's a little.
Yeah, so the remote school thing is, it's quite a project. And then I'm still, it's hard. It's weird. It's a weird, like stuck in amber moment, and mysterious when it will come again, when we'll be back. But one fun project that I was working on today is a new musical with Elvis Costello. That's fun.
Wow.
He's
Wow.
an amazing person, and Sarah Rule's writing the book. So that's fun. But,
Right.
may we all be well.
Halavai. Lisa Liv, what about you?
Well, let's see. I've been doing Wednesday nights online. I've been doing Zoom concerts, not every Wednesday night, but I'm kind of like you, Avi. I've turned into a little bit of a chat show host. I have people come on, little visitors, and different themes every week, and every week is different when I do it. It's called Wednesdays at 8 with Lisa.
Nice.
So there's that. And I'm kind of doing the same thing as Matt. I'm going through archives, like, tunes that I've never arranged fully. I want to make, you know, I don't have one big project, but I've like a lot of small composing and finishing touches. I want to make a recording of the 4-part Rifkala and Manka theme. I'm working on an arrangement of it, and there's a band. There's a couple of bands that are already will play it, so that's kind of nice. Like I'm trying to write arrangements for other bands to play. Bit of teaching and little few new compositions here and there.
You know, I feel like we are,
Sorry, Avi. I should say, I'm sure it's true for all of us, or I would guess it is. A lot of time and energy into going into anti-racism work and
yeah,
trying to defeat this, you know, win this election.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
absolutely.
You're right.
Menschlichkeit. It's time for the human party. You
Yeah.
know, it's time for a mensch party. Be a mensch. Hashtag be a mensch. Yeah, I think we are all now going through a period of evolution. I think the human race, and certainly we in America now, have to evolve. And if we don't evolve, then we die. And that's where we're at. We are all in our own personal time of evolution. And hopefully we will come out on the good side of evolution. I remember a book many, many years ago called The Global Brain by Peter Russell. And he talked about it from a scientific perspective he was a scientist. And apparently if you take a petri dish and you grow a culture, when it reaches 10 billion units, it either evolves or dies. And we are quickly approaching 10 billion human beings on the planet. And his basic thesis was we either evolve or we die.
Yeah.
And so I guess we all have to try to evolve in a positive way. And you know what? I feel blessed. I feel blessed to have had all of you tonight with me in this Yiddishfest. I feel blessed that this Yiddishfest has happened and that there is so much going on. And I could not be happier and I could not be more grateful. So thank you all for your participation. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right. I'm going to say a few words to whoever's left. And I see there are still a few. Wow. I can't believe it. So, and not that you haven't been brilliant, but you know, it's 11:39 at this point, everybody's half asleep. So thank you all. You can go ahead and, you know, leave while I say goodbye to everybody else. And I love you and thank you all for being a part of this.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all.
So everybody,
You up.
have a wonderful night. Seid gesund und stark. I'm very grateful that you all stuck with it. And tomorrow is a huge day. And the best is yet to come. Tomorrow night's Frank London and Eleanor Risa concert is please don't miss it. Not that I want you to miss anything else, but that's like one of the highlights. And then of course, Sunday, we have our big end of festival shows, live play readings, and the Great Stars of David musical concert that we're going to be doing. So ladies and gentlemen, seid gesund und stark and ashenim and herzlichen Dank. Thank you so much for coming and have a beautiful good night.
My name is Rabbi Solomon Schiff. I was the executive vice president of the Rabbinical Grade of Miami for 42 years. and director of chaplaincy for the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for 40 years. My parents came from they spoke Yiddish. And all my studies going through becoming a rabbi, all the studies were all in Yiddish. So that's an important part, and we can't dismiss that culture. If we forget that and we let it be erased, then we will lose a part of our heritage. That's what we have to capture. That's what we have to teach and impress our young people. And if they want to be loyal to the Jewish people, the Jewish history, the golden chain of Jewish tradition to continue, you have to absorb the understanding of what Jewishness is, what Yiddishkeit is,